Welcome back. I'm playing Warhammer 40,000 Armageddon, and by popular demand, I will come back and finish the Angels of Death. I'll eventually come back and finish the Orc Hunters as well. I don't know if I'll necessarily do them back to back, but I will, like I said, I promised to finish this game off, and I will. So, for the Angels of Death DLC here, command the Fierce Blood Angels through their second War for Armageddon campaign and 10 new missions. Enter the confines of the massive 5 cities of Armageddon to fight the Orcs in brutal close combat encounters. So what I'm going to do is beat this on the hard. If you want to watch the very hard playthrough, which is pretty painful because this is actually the very first series I ever uploaded, and so the quality is very poor, and then with the very hard difficulty because of all the buffs that the AI gets and all the penalties you get, it's almost nearly impossible to beat all the DLC without using a unit mod to try to bring things up and be a little more balanced. And it was kind of weird that Slytherin actually released the mod and said, yeah, you'll probably have to use this if you're going to play on the harder difficulties. It was made by one of our players, so go ahead, and they released the link on their official update for the game. But if you're unfamiliar with how this game works, if you're playing on the easy difficulty, which I don't recommend unless you purely want to do this story, because it's just ridiculously easy. So what it does is you get 200% of the requisition and 200% experience. So what requisition is the resources for buying additional units, and then the AI units suffer 50 unit losses, so effectively their forces have nothing, and you can just run in there and slaughter them with almost anything that you have. So therefore it's actually not a very enjoyable experience. Like I said, the only reason I could think of somebody playing that is if they just wanted to blow through the campaign and see what it was like. The normal difficulty gives you kind of the baseline settings, so you get 100% of the requisition and 100% of the experience, and there's no buffs to you or the AI, so that's just literally the straight default setting as you would expect. Challenging is you get 80% of the requisition, so now you start getting a 20% penalty to your finances, but you still get 100% of the experience, and then the AI will start to receive bonuses where they'll get 10 additional units per squad. Hard, which is actually the difficulty I recommend playing this game on, because I think it's still a little bit challenging. Well, I'd say little to moderate. I mean, you'll likely have to redo some of the levels unless you're familiar with the layout, but I think it's quite good because you get 70% of the requisition, so then you have to be strategic with the battles you're choosing, because you can't just lose everybody or else you won't be able to pay for reinforcing your guys, and when you reinforce losses, they'll lose their experience level, so it definitely makes sense for you to try to level up your guys and minimize losses, because once you get a fully leveled unit, it's way better than the default setup. And then you still get 100% of the experience, but the AI units start to get 20 additional units per squad. And then if you're going to play the very hard difficulty, which again I don't recommend you do because it's not a fun experience at all, it's just very frustrating, you get 70% requisition, 100% of the experience, and then the AI units start to get plus 50 units per squad. And the issue is especially on some of these DLCs, they have custom squads that are just positioned around the map, whereas let's say a squad is supposed to have 50 units. Well, then if you all of a sudden have it be, you know, buffed up to, let's say, 125 units, then you end up throwing an additional 50 units on there. There are squads of units here that are in the 200 range for the amount of units they have, and sometimes they're stronger units, and you can literally attack with almost your whole army, and if you end up getting bad rolls, you could effectively not be able to wipe out the unit, and then they can just reinforce and get back up to full health, and you're like doing this over and over again. And since a lot of these missions are timed in terms of the amount of turns to complete the objective, to prevent you from just sitting back and farming experience and collecting requisition, it effectively can really put you in a real bad way, especially if the enemies decide to just hide and cover, because then they get a bunch of reduced damage when you have that many models attacking back. Even units that normally should not be able to damage, like vehicles or your heavy units, can start wiping out units if they get good rolls, just with the sheer amount of rolls that they can get with all their attacks with 200 plus models. So it becomes an absolute nightmare. So I definitely recommend the hard difficulty. And then I'm going to play with the Fog of War and the undo button selected. So what the Fog of War is like most games, you have a Fog of War, so you can't see what's on the map unless you have units in the line of sight. So that makes it easier, or I should say, well, it's easier and harder. It's easier in that the AI will not get activated unless the AI units see you, so that allows you to use forces like snipers that have more vision to see where the enemy units are and then snipe them at range, and as long as they can't see any of your units, then the AI won't get activated to attack you. But if you, the downside of that obviously is you never know when you're moving forward if you're going to end up putting your guys into an ambush situation where now you might get somebody killed, so you got to be careful. The trade-off on the downside though is if you deactivate the fog of war, yes, you can see where all the AI units are, and then you can strategically kind of move your armies around to get the best engagements. But the downside is the AI will automatically know where your units are as well, and therefore if any of your units, especially your weaker units, get moved into the movement and attack range, then everybody will just swarm into a unit. So you actually suffer a lot more losses in my experience when you have the fog of war deactivated than having it on. So I definitely recommend using that. And then the undo button, you'd think, oh, that's kind of cheating. Is that you can't really cheese the undo button, because if you move somebody and discover it, or you move and you attack, you can't undo those actions. You can only undo an action where you accidentally have somebody clicked and then you move them, but you didn't mean to actually move them there, because that's actually quite easy to do. And so it'll allow you to undo that movement, assuming you haven't then clicked on anybody else. So you can't move a bunch of guys and just undo the movements. It's pretty much one unit at a time, and once they're no longer selected, you can't undo anything. So that definitely prevents you from being able to take advantage of the situation. So with that, I think we'll get started. Lord Dante, Captain, I'm glad you are here. As Chapter Master, I asked for you personally. Your command skills and experience suit this theater of war. For Armageddon is a carnal house by my reckoning. We must make the orcs pay for desecrating this planet. The local governor has shirked his duty, and so the greenskins have run rampant. I will not have the Xeno scum slaughter and sack their way across this world. I am sending your battle company to Hive Artron, Captain. It is among the last hives in the Imperial hands. For the honor of Baal, ensure it stays that way. Now go, Captain. You are the tip of my spear. Ensure it strikes true at Archon? I'm not sure how to say it after all this time. I wish I've never done, what is it, Hell's Reach, where they have the Battle of Armageddon, so I don't know actually how to say these ones. May Sanguinus watch over you. Kind of a rough start here. So normally what I would do is get rid of these guys, especially the ones that have transports, because if you suffer any model loss, then you automatically have to pay for the transport, so it significantly increases the cost for your units. However, I can't really do that on this mission, because this is one of the missions where you have bonus objectives, and the bonus objectives have to do with keeping your auxiliary units, so that would be the Steel Legion units, your what would you call them, drop pods here, and I don't know if I disbanded units, if that would count as unit losses as well. So I'm trying to retreat guys back to my base here, because as a reward I think I get a super heavy tank, and I think that's pretty much the only one other, I mean, I think the only way you get super heavies on this campaign, if I remember correctly, are by completing the objectives. So I definitely want to make sure I do that. Now unfortunately a lot of these guys are just absolutely getting killed. Now I do have some points here. I do think the Devastators are going to be helpful early on, but I need some range units in case we end up having to fight vehicles. Otherwise the regular Dreadnoughts I think are just going to suffer too many losses. But I'll try to keep these Dreadnoughts in the city here on the road and try to use that as a area to try to aggro attacks, and also to act as a front line, because hopefully early on in this campaign they shouldn't have too many tank busters, commandos, things like that that are actually really good against vehicles. So we'll try to set that up and then try to clear out some of these other areas here. Now part of me kind of wants to reinforce these guys, but I don't think there's any way he's going to be able to survive, so I think that's a waste of resources, because those storm boys are just going to run in there and get the attack, so we might as well just sacrifice them. I was kind of hoping to be able to salvage that sentinel, but I guess that's not happening. And we'll just try to pull these guys back, I guess. Kill whatever we can. Now, a unique dreadnought for the Blood Angels here is the Furioso. It's an interesting unit for sure. The big thing is it's got heavy flamers, so that means it actually does decent damage against units even when they're in cover or trenches. It affects their morale a little bit more, so that way it's easier to break them, because once you start to suffer morale losses in this game, then the amount of damage that you do significantly drops. So it's definitely a big component to this game that you need to do. Now, I generally like these regular dreadnoughts better because they have the assault cannon as their secondary weapon, and that allows them to have an increased range attack for a range of 2, I think. Whereas the heavy flamers, as you can imagine, only affects people that are within 1 square of them. So that really limits the amount of damage that they can do. And I think we'll just kind of sit back and have these other guys just do as much as we can. And just hold the line. Now, I don't remember if the Blood Angels also have access to Venerable Dreadnoughts or not. Because as you saw with my other playthrough, I definitely go with a pretty Dreadnought heavy army. And it's even more effective at clearing out weaker units with the Blood Angels here because of their heavy flamer ability. So it definitely allows you to clear out weakened units a lot faster. I don't know if I'll continue on with the Predators or not. I mean, part of me thinks they could be pretty good, but the other part of me is like, am I more likely going to want to use that than a Dreadnought? Probably not. Now maybe once I start getting access to, what are they called? Not the land speeders. Land raiders? Maybe then it would be worthwhile. But then that's a lot of turns where I'm potentially putting them at risk of dying, and I need all the funds I can get generally on this campaign. And like this Vindicator here, they generally do quite a bit of damage, but with only a range of 2 of 2, it tends to aggro attacks from the AI because they know they can attack it without getting countered. So I tend to not use those, although I do like that they typically have more armor. And they're technically supposed to have siege damage, which means they should do bonus damage to guys that are in trenches or buildings, but I don't think that actually ever was properly coded. Kind of the same thing with Hydras and other AA. It has, you know, an anti-flamer, or flyer, not flamer, anti-flyer, supposed to do bonus damage, but I don't think it actually works the way it's intended. I mean, this was a very ambitious game, I think. I mean, they clearly put a lot of effort into it with all these different types of models, but it just wasn't balanced out very well. Because there's definitely units that are vastly superior than others. Now maybe if you're going to play on like the very easy difficulty or something, it's doesn't really matter what units you have, and because you'll be able to kill everything, so then it's probably less important, your force selections, but especially if you're going to play on the harder difficulties, you're going to run into requisition issues, and you need to focus on your killing, and therefore you can't play around as much. Alright, I think we got everybody moved out here. Yeah, now the one nice thing about the Space Marine with like the Devastators is they're actually pretty tanky for support fire units. And so the AI won't always focus fire them down, because that's one issue that's quite difficult to, or one aspect of this game that's hard to deal with, is when you're playing with these support units, what happens if anyone that's within 1 square of them gets attacked, they'll automatically get a counter attack first, they being the Devastator. And then those reduced model counts will then get to do their attack rolls on the unit that they're trying to kill. And so it allows you to really effectively do more damage and take less damage because those guys get to go first. Because it doesn't matter what their actual speed is. And they do have like anti-vehicle variants and things too with the multi-meltas, but unfortunately those only have like a range of 2, so if you're already 1 square back, then it really limits the amount of utility that they have due to that really low range. So I wish they had, like, they put all this effort into it, but it's like you didn't give them a las cannon to give them like a 3 out of 3 range or something like that. Now in their defense they're like, well, that's what the thunder cannon or whatever is for, but that one is so hard to move around unless you give it a transport. It only has 1 movement, so that really limits the utility, but that's definitely a very, very powerful support weapon. And in fact, if you've watched some of my other campaigns through the DLC, there were maps where I had to use those to keep my guys alive. But as you can see, the Devastator with the range of 3 here with their heavy bolters allows them to get a lot of different support fire here. Again, they get to attack first, so they're even doing full squad wipes on different units before they even get to attack. Now, unfortunately, our Predator here is starting to take damage. I just hate giving up all this experience, because assuming I'm going to disband a lot of these guys, that means all the experience they're gaining on these missions is just going to be lost, but it is what it is, I guess. I just can't risk failing the objective because of disbanding guys. And I got to protect these weak Steel Legionnaires in front of me here. Yeah, I'll probably end up losing another tank here because he's only got 1 HP left, so if he takes any damage I'm going to lose another model. I only have 193 requisition. Now, one thing that may not be clear on this game is when they're... Oh, see, there's a tank buster right there. And he's going to melee. Yep. That's not totally clear if you're playing this game. I assume this has to do like how tabletop may work. I don't know. I've never played a tabletop Warhammer game. In real life, I should say. But what seems to happen is they do ranged damage, and then each unit must roll for it. So let's say you're being attacked by a unit that only has melee. You're not going to be shooting them. You only get to roll for melee. So that's why it actually makes sense for you to use units that have both melee and range, and that's why I like the regular Dreadnought so much better than other variants, because they'll get attacked by range and then they can do the counterattack. And then, you know, well, I guess that's not totally true, because if I play with the Hellfire Dreadnought and he gets attacked, then it'll still get a counterattack with its range, even if I'm fighting guys that have only melee. So I take that back. That's a bunch of bullshit I was about to feed you. It just seems very strange with how this works sometimes, because using that as an example, I was hoping you were going to get the kill there. When you're, I guess the point is, when you're getting attacked, you won't get to attack with all weapons necessarily. So if they're not engaging you in melee, you're not going to get your melee attack, I guess is the point I was trying to make with the dreadnoughts here. So if you saw like the Shooters, when they attacked the Furioso, he got his flamer, heavy flamer attack because they were at range 1, but he didn't get a melee attack as well. So maybe that's a better way of saying it. So if you're being attacked by a ranged unit, you're only going to do range damage as a counter attack. You won't get to do your melee. But if you're attacked in melee, you'll get to counter with both a range attack and a melee attack. I think that's probably the best way to say it. I think the way I was going to say it before was incorrect. And what it tends to happen, which is kind of confusing, is so it's like range attack will go first, so you know the attacking force will do their, it'll go off of initiative, I think is actually how it goes, and that's that lightning bolt symbol here that you can see on all these different units. So whoever has the highest initiative will attack first, and then it'll be range, and then your range counter, and then it'll do melee, and then they'll do melee counter. I think that's how that ends up going. Now what I don't know is if you have a super fast melee unit, will that bypass the range phase and they still get to go first? Because I don't think it's range. Or if you have both a range and a melee attack, I don't know if you get to complete yours and then they go. Because it seems like we're doing damage and squad wiping here. And they're not counterattacking. Yeah, see, because clearly I wiped them out, but then I still got damaged here, so it's a little confusing how this works out here. That was a really bad damage roll there as well. I'm actually taking quite a bit of damage here. But I gotta be careful that I don't end up getting squad wipes here. I'm already running out of resources, and I have more units that need to be reinforced than what I can actually afford. And then the other thing to know about these auxiliaries is they don't carry through on different missions, so it doesn't make sense for you to spend requisition reinforcing them unless you're going to use them to try to tank different attacks. And so that's why I'm actually reinforcing these Steel Legionnaires, is not because I'm trying to keep them alive for the next mission, but because as infantry, I think the whole model's like 100 or 200 for a full squad, and so replacing those losses is actually much cheaper to support, reinforce them than it is to reinforce and pay for my Space Marines here. Because I think the Dreadnought was what? 800 for a Dreadnought, 850 for the Hellfire, and as you can see I'm suffering losses. Now I was able to keep guys alive, so we did complete the objective here. And now I've got that super heavy, so that'll help us. And then see, it's actually one of my favorite variants because it has quite a few attacks there. And it also, so it not only does it have a lot of attacks, but it also has a range 4 weapon, which is kind of rare in this game. So it allows them to also snipe down more powerful units like the tank busters without suffering damage. So you can start weakening down their model count, so when you have guys that'll actually get counterattacked, they'll have less attacks that they can carry through with. But these dreadnoughts are definitely starting to get weakened down here, unfortunately. I mean, really what I should probably be doing if I really wanted to min-max this is I should just not attack the guys that are near. So yeah, so the way I'm playing now is not how I'd be playing if we were doing the very hard difficulty. If you're going to be playing the very hard difficulty, I would not want to be squad wiping guys that are almost gonna die. Well, I guess you don't always want to do that, I should say. If you have to kill all models, then you definitely want to do that so they don't reinforce and get back up to full health. But on a mission objective like this, where I want to just, well, let's see, I got the complete objective done here, so maybe I just disband this guy now and I can have those resources. Sorry, I'm like a squirrel right now, trying to talk and think through things. It's not going particularly well. What was I saying? Oh, if I was playing on the very hard difficulty, how I'd want to be actually doing this is different than what I'm doing right now. So what I would say is if I was doing the very hard difficulty and I was just doing a defensive objective like this, I wouldn't actually want to be squad wiping because I'd want them to be wasting turns reinforcing or to just keep attacking me, and then I would hope that I didn't actually squad wipe them, because what the AI will not do, it's not coded to be advanced enough to realize like, oh, it can attack and then pull back and then get another unit to engage you. Once a unit is engaged, it'll just kind of stay there and either keep fighting you or it'll reinforce. Rarely do they end up running away. So what you'd want is for them to sit there and attack you, not get wiped, and then use up that square so then a stronger model squad doesn't come in there and do damage to you. Because the other thing that's kind of stupid with the AI on this game that you can cheese is, I think what happens is, I'm not quite sure how it works out, but I think it must have to do with the initiative of the units, because what'll happen is it'll cycle through units in order. Actually, it's probably not the initiative now that I think about it. You can see how I've got numbers here where it's like squad 25, squad number 20. I suspect what happens is they go through theirs probably chronological order. I guess I've never really verified this, but it cycles through them, and so if a unit, let's say, gets to move before there's a square available to attack, it'll just stay in place. And so by keeping guys alive when you're on defensive missions, it'll slow down their assault, and especially if you can put them on a choke point, then it'll really mitigate the amount of damage that's dealt to you. So that's how you would maximize your choke points. So you wouldn't be like continually attacking like I am here. That doesn't make any sense. So you have to balance, you know, getting kills to get the experience and then not spending the money. Now I'm expecting to disband a lot of these forces, so I'm hoping I'm going to have enough to be able to hire a bunch of dreadnoughts. Maybe I'm being too sloppy here and it might cost me in the end, but I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get some snipers and that'll be cheaper, and so I'm thinking I'm still going to be ahead on the requisition situation, but I guess that's an assumption I'm making here, and I guess I'll see if it's right or not. But I just have to capture this one position, and I think then I can just wait out the turn. I don't remember how many guys they actually have. And if they keep coming, I think probably everybody that's attacking me is here, but I don't know if that's true or not. And the other thing is if you're going to be playing this game and you have a mission like this where you need to keep using these forces, then don't always just disband them. Because that's something I'm really bad about, is if you have access to a unit that's in the same category, so like vehicles for vehicles, infantry for infantry, it doesn't matter what they do, it can transition to different squads as long as it's within the same category. So unfortunately you can't do like a vehicle or an infantry into a tank, or a tank into artillery. It doesn't work that way. But anything that's within that same category, they can be upgraded into. And so especially with infantry, if you want to do the snipers, then you can not only transition them into being the snipers, which are typically a pretty low cost unit, even though they're very powerful, some of the most potentially powerful infantry out there, because of, excuse me, everything they can do for you. But you then get to keep the experience, because as long as if you disband them, you just lose everything and you just get the requisition that it costs. But if you upgrade and turn them into something else, then they get to keep it. So I hope that makes sense. I kind of feel like I'm a little rambly tonight, but I am struggling with playing and speaking tonight for whatever reason. I must be tired. I guess let's just pull you into here, maybe.
don't want to suffer any more losses is a thing. Alright, we got 2 more turns here, and then I can actually start setting up squads the way I want them. The other thing I've noticed on this campaign here is I apologize for some of the clips that are happening here, like the cuts, I mean. For some reason this game keeps crashing on me. I've never had this problem before, but it seems like the cheat engine is actually crashing the game. That's a thing that I frequently get asked by subscribers. They say, like, how do you speed up a lot of your games? Is I use a program called Cheat Engine. Because as much as I love turn-based strategy games, I get really annoyed with how slow a lot of their animations are. Now, I know that drives some of you guys crazy. So I do apologize for that, but I'm just a very impatient individual. And so after you watch the same animation like 50 times, it's like, okay, I know what you're doing. Can we just kind of skip this and keep things moving here so I can experience the more interesting parts of this game? So I strongly recommend that, though. I really like that program. It generally works really well. The one downside to it is it'll sometimes screw up cinematics where the way a lot of these games must be coded is the cinematics must be different from the audio, so it'll sync up or it won't necessarily sync the video and the audio, so you have to be careful because you could have a cutscene that could all of a sudden blow through and then the audio won't even be done, and so it can really mess up your game. So early on I didn't quite understand how that worked when I started creating some videos, and so you'll notice a lot of, especially the early videos I uploaded, I didn't understand why there was such an asynchrony there when I was speeding up the game, and then I realized if you technically want to close it to be able to do it.
Alright, so victory was ours. Definitely a little bit of a challenging mission there. You have to keep your auxiliaries alive to be able to trigger that bonus objective. But I think that Macarius Falcon should be a good unit for us for clearing out orcs here with all those shots that they have. Your battlecraft is impressive as always, Captain, but the orcs are guided by an insidious intelligence. They attack in coordinated vectors rather than their usual rabble. No wonder Armageddon has been hit so hard. This von Straub was a fool for delaying our summons. Yet we will be victorious. The orcs, no matter their numbers or how clever, are no match for the Blood Angels. Now your next mission. Despite your impressive showing, some orcs have cunningly infiltrated Hive Archeron's interior by other routes. Stop them before they cause serious harm or disrupt Imperial defenses. Leave no greenskin alive. Control at least 4 victory hexes by the end of the mission. Oh, I kind of remember this mission. I remember it being quite actually challenging. And I think you get like a wyvern or something for the bonus objective, so it's not even worth the points that you end up getting here. Looks like it chewed through a lot of my points as well here. So let's remove the transports to reduce the costs here. Because I would like to have those guys reinforced to full. And let's turn these guys into scout snipers. Same with you. That'll get us some more points. And then the next question is, do I want just one support squad or do I want multiple? This could be a 3 out of 3 attack, which could be helpful. But I think they're so squishy, I'd rather have the points. So if I disband them, good, I can start getting better units. The Whirlwind has support fire, right? Yeah. But it's only 2 to 3, so let's disband that. That'll get us another regular dreadnought. 2, 3, 4. So we've got 4 regular dreadnoughts, 1 Furioso. These guys do not have the leadership ability. That's what I was trying to remember, is if they had that or not. Honestly, I think I'd rather get rid of these Predators and just focus on Hellfire Dreadnoughts for their increased defense to keep them alive, as we're blowing through our funds so quickly. I may actually just turn you guys into another scout squad. So that's 4. I can still hire 1 more guy. I just feel like, well, these guys are good at clearing out the weak infantry, they just die too easy. So let's get some more Hellfires. And then that gets us up to 400 and something. So I could get more scout snipers. I also feel like I probably need another command squad. As much as I hate to think about that, but I do think I need more morale healing. Because I don't know if I get Venerable Dreadnoughts with these guys. I assume I must. I was actually kind of thinking the Furioso were going to be the vulnerable or Venerable Dreadnoughts. Not the Vulnerable Dreadnoughts, that would be something else. Well, maybe we'll try it with one and see how it goes. Alright, and with that, I think we have closed out our first mission. We'll get started on the second mission here. I will maybe attempt to do the bonus objective, but since the reward I seem to remember was just a Wyram, because I was so disgusted by it, by all the points I had utilized to get the objective, and then I was so disappointed. I remember this map, which is funny. But the big thing is you gotta clear out these guys here and try to hold these bonus objectives as much as you can here. So, thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying these videos. If you are, please give my channel a like and subscribe. It encourages me to post more content for you. Have a great day.